Well, on this edition of Michigan Magazine, we're in Mile, Cherry Creek Road. Tom Christianson.
Welcome to my home.
Thank you very much. Tom Christianson is a world champion carver, lures, fish, all sorts of neat things from the wonders of our waters here, turtles and whatnot. Tom, tell us a little bit about how you got into the world of carving and specifically lures. What drew you there?
Well, lures sort of came after the decoys, but I hurt my back, went out of a building business and was selling off my collections on eBay. And as I was wandering through eBay, checking out prices and different things, I came across decoys and thought, I think I could make that. Started carving them and making them. And
yeah, so you're not only into fish decoys, but you have deer, other, do you do ducks at all, or no?
No, not ducks. I haven't got into birds. I'd like to someday. That's sort of where I'd like to end up, but sticking with fish for now.
You're a big fisherman yourself, I bet.
Well, I'm a big sportsman altogether.
Okay.
Don't have time to do as much as I'd like, but yeah, hunting, fishing, the whole thing.
And you do not, what really drew our attention was the attention that you got from this big deer that we saw out, it's in your yard now, but it was at one of the local establishments in Fairview, and that drew a lot of attention. How did you do that, and what got you into that direction?
Well, 3 years ago when I started carving, that's when I first started carving, I thought that I'd always like to do a deer, jumping over a fence or something like that, and as my skills increased, I took a college class last fall, and I got permission from my sculptor teacher to let me do a wood sculpture instead of clay.
Really?
And he let me go with it, and that's what I did.
So you've come a long way now. You're doing shows and really refining your art here of the lure. Now, this is a collection of lures that, well, tell us a little bit about it.
Lures are really popular, and I'd always wondered if the vintage lures that are collected today, like the old Head and Creek Chubs, they were all mass-produced. And so, as I tried to strive for realism in my decoys, I wondered, what if they didn't have to mass-produce them? What if you could add the realistic element to a lure? And so that's what I strove for. And so my lures are sort of the higher end.
They're kind of collectibles, I would think.
They are.
Some people do use them, I bet, occasionally.
I have a few customers that use them, but most people buy them to look at their art, and they all work, but it's a lot of money to throw out.
Yeah, but now you've got into competition. You're getting some awards lately. Now, this is something that a lot of people strive to do because it brings a lot of attention to your work now, doesn't it?
Well, that was sort of my strategy when on eBay when I was selling my decoys. Here, sort of the first kind of thing I was making, and I was selling them for $8, $10, and I noticed that the guys that were winning awards were getting a lot more money for their stuff, and they looked a lot nicer. So that was where that's who I started chasing after.
Okay,
that's who I admired, and guys like Harley Reagan and John Pazusta, and
But you can see a lot of your things on eBay now. That's where you pretty much do a lot of your marketing. You do a lot of shows, like the On the Way show is coming up pretty soon, and you're getting a lot of reaction. What kind of reaction are you getting from your lures? Pretty positive, are you?
Yeah. I sell everything I make. 3 years ago, when I started carving, the first show I went to was 3 years ago. The Great Lakes Fish Decoy Association's annual competition for the World Championships. I won 1 blue ribbon there, and the next show I went to was the one in Onaway, and I got best of show with this rainbow trout, and it's not the best looking trout I've ever made, but it kind of does a trick in the water where it kind of rolls over when you jig it, and that impressed the judges, and that got me the best of show there. Went to the World Championships competition the next year and came home with like 18 blue ribbons. And
do you remember the first one that you won, the first award that came your way? Do you recall that, or is that kind of a blur in history now?
The very first award, the very first best of show was the one in Onaway with this fish.
Oh.
That was the one that really got me excited. The first award I won was actually, there was an internet website I used to hang out at called Carver Comp, and they would have challenges for different lures. And I won a blue ribbon on a lure I made there.
Do you have time to do any fishing yourself now with all this carving going on?
Yeah, me and my son go fishing from time to time, and me and my wife Marika, we go fishing at her parents' pond's the best place because it's always guaranteed to catch fish. But when I got time, I go. The joke is that, you know, I spend more time carving fish than fishing anymore. But yeah, I love fishing.
Yeah, you're all around sportsman too. Hey, what have we got here, Tom?
Well, what we got here is just some different variations of the lures I make, little critters, mice and chipmunks, and I also take old antique lures that are so beat up they have no value anymore, and I repaint them.
Is that one of those there?
Well, this is an old creek chub, and there's a lot of controversy with repainting old lures. Some don't like it, some think that it's okay. What I like to do is take this is a creek chub with a head and bar perch finish, so that's sort of unique that you never find a head and finish on a creek chub lure. Another thing I do is this is an old pawpaw water frog. I remake those and strip them, and they used to always use tack eyes painted, and I'd put glass eyes in them. I just recently started making, pushing my lures and decoys. I scaled my decoys down to a different size to fit into a new line of boxes that I'm making.
Okay. Well, this is something new for you.
Yeah, I got 4 different designs. I tried to design it with like the old head and the old vintage boxes. The lures used to come in the old boxes, so I wanted to go with that. I got a little inspirational.
About the artist?
Yeah, well, the artist is actually the Lord, not me. But I give all the credit to him. A lot of inspiration there. Well, I just, he's the master artist, and that's sort of where I gravitate towards the realism. I think his art and nature's beautiful, and I like the realism.
Tom's realism, inspired by his faith, is a true testimony of one man's desire to make the best of what life hands him. From an injured back and physical limitations, he's discovered an untapped talent to market his ability and love of carving and other artistic expressions. With the full support of his family, especially his wife Marika, Tom has expressed himself in other mediums and subjects, from beautifully detailed pottery to paintings such as this portrait of Jesus supporting a fallen man, a project Tom tells us he completed during a dark time in his life. Those times are times Tom and his family seem to triumph through their faith. It was a wonderful experience that day to visit with Tom Christianson and his family and thank them for sharing their morning with us. Tom's work can be found on eBay and at various sporting shows around the Midwest.